Who'd like to go first? Yeah. Tom. Yeah. At the front here. Yeah. Stand up, then he'll see you. Thank you. Tell us who you are, Tom.
Of course, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Tom Van Duren, Mott MacDonald, and University of Leeds. My question is inspired by, I think, what Rachel asked us to do, and to say, intervene and don't let the market tell us sort of what is going to happen. So I'd like the panel to answer A, do they think that's possible, given our recent successes in doing so? And B, what do we need to do modelling-wise, because it is about modelling, to be able to do that?
Okay, let's start with Rachel. Yes.
I think I have to say yes to the first bit of the question. I think it's entirely possible. For me, I don't want to go back over anything I was saying before, but in a nutshell, it's about knowing what we want. And it's about being convincing in the way that we communicate what we want and why that has a bigger benefit. And if we can't do that, frankly, the rest of it is sort of null and void in the grand scheme of things. I don't know if anybody else wants to.
I think the fundamental assumption in what you just said is do you know who we are? And we keep talking about we. One of the things we in universities are trying to do in a club of universities is to create a convening space which is neutral with regard to the market, with regard to the politics, and it's based largely on knowledge and evidence. Not totally, though, because of course there's emotion and of course there's legacy in the way in which our culture works. But that's what we lack. What we lack is a place where people can come and have an open, frank discussion about what we collectively would be prepared to compromise on and not compromise on, and to find something that is useful for our nation and our society at large, actually, because we're a global player.
Thanks, Peter. I guess TfL must have wrestled with this issue, the extent to which you're going to be responding to market forces or actually trying to shape the way things develop.
Okay, I think first and foremost, we throw down many challenges to the modelling community, and you always deliver back to us. We wouldn't have achieved the games without your capabilities, and we wouldn't have achieved what we've done over the last 4 years without it. So you do meet the challenge. I guess I see this as a bit like a Rubik's Cube, that in some ways we've been working on the two-dimensional face, and now we've added the third dimension into the equation. It's going to be hugely more complex, but you've got some great minds in the industry, and we are going to take some wrong turns, and we're going to find stuff out and think, actually, that was the wrong decision, and we'll back that in. If we do it, we will get there, but it doesn't mean you've got to grasp it and get on with it, and we do it together.
Okay, thanks very much. Do you want to say anything?
Just quickly, I think probably the first thing to get our head around is the public sector will be negotiating with the private sector, and society and consumers will be in the middle. And it could quite easily get to the stage where the public sector has no negotiating bargain tools. And we're seeing in America spin-outs from Google looking to basically run the whole city system for you. And once you almost see cost saving through that model and see promise through that model, it's very hard, I think, for politicians to have leverage on getting the outcomes they need.
Okay, thanks for the warning. We'll take a couple more. If there's one here. Please stand up. Yeah, and then they can...
Hi, this is Sterren Fisher from Atkins. Just a quick question about the safety aspects of autonomous vehicles. Now, the Highway Code says that a driver is not supposed to do an emergency stop for an animal, but they are for a person. I have a doubt in my mind that autonomous vehicles are actually compliant on that at the moment. And is that a technology problem? Do autonomous vehicles need to be more intelligent about spotting different kinds of bodies? Or is it a policy thing? Do we need to be a bit more lax in the sort of policies? I'm not sure who that's directed to. Maybe Peter first.
Would somebody feel like picking that up? Yeah.
One of my experiences was with the ash cloud that came from Iceland. And the CAA regulation said, don't fly in an ash cloud you could see. So Willie Walsh, you all know Willie Walsh, has said, I can't see it, I can fly my aircraft through it. And we said, it means detect. So I think the answer to your question is the regulation needs to be very carefully worded and interpreted in such a way that autonomous vehicles, the technology that is in them, does behaves in a way which everyone finds socially acceptable from a safety point of view. I know I'm mincing the words, but that's what regulations normally do. And I think the regulations, of course, can be changed. The only things that you can't change are the laws of physics. So at the end of the day, I think you will find that vehicles will do what is a sensible thing to do from a societal point of view. And if the regulation doesn't cause us to do that, and the regulations need changing.
I guess without extending it, I guess there's also the point that whether the sensors can actually detect the type of thing there as well.
Well, I mean, thermal sensors, which you can see on Autumn Watch, can detect hot bodies at kilometres. So it's actually not a problem. It's a price issue. How much does that technology cost?
Oh, sorry, James, quickly then.
I mean, we have to choose which of these cabs we go in, and the question is really, do you like running over animals? If people work out that consumers don't, then I'm sure that's the service you'll get.
Okay, can you pass the microphone along to the lady there?
I think it's illegal to run over a dog, but not a cat. Is that true?
I don't know.
Hello, I'm from Tech Mahindra, and I was just thinking, we are talking about mobility as a service, and we're talking about how it will encompass the end-to-end journey. And so how do we see modeling influencing or playing an important role for various intervention, whether it's government and the society and people's opinion, to form the rules and regulation, or which one is going to be more important? So will modeling help in that and take everybody's opinion into consideration?
Okay, yeah.
I think it's a real challenge for companies that are offering, trying to price how we travel now, trying to price our spend on that into this new mass model. And I don't think anyone actually knows how viable the business is for certain types of consumers, certain types of trips, purposes and locations. So I'd love to see a modeler who can show me where I can make lots of money with my next mass app. But I think really what the innovators will do is they'll keep iterating and being lean and testing on certain markets, and then we'll see if we're getting positive or negative outcomes, then policy will react.
Okay, let's work through. Yeah, Peter.
I suppose I'm looking at this from a slightly different perspective. It's going to be difficult. I think a set of base assumptions have got to be universally agreed. For instance, how much empty running is there likely to be in any one scenario? And then for that to work its way through small scale tests and then put into larger, more strategic models to see what the collective impacts are, and probably run a whole variety of scenarios to see for cities what does that really mean. But I think it's working up from the small scale, making sure that's agreed, and expanding out into a citywide argument.
I think, from my point of view, I think there's a couple of things in this. First of all, I think we're already seeing some slightly strange decisions being made in terms of some of the early modelling that's being done, and that's not intended to be a sort of a dig at anything that anybody in this room is doing. It's without doubt the case that if we take the methods we've already got, no matter how clever and up-to-date and all the rest of it they actually are, and we sort of fiddle with some of the parameters and so on within them, we can pretty much guarantee that we can predict some of the answers we're going to get out of the other end of that sort of pipe, if you know what I mean. I think we need to be really, really careful about thinking about how we're defining the questions we're trying to ask of those existing techniques, and think about what the actual answers mean, and just make sure that we're not sort of all becoming turkeys voting for Christmas in that respect. I think the other side of that, though, is I think there's an opportunity in terms of the specifics of some of the modelling to get so much more creative and to be a bit more bold in terms of looking at where other people have already answered similar questions and looking at some of those tools and techniques and so on, and perhaps not being afraid to bring some of that into our space. There's all kinds of examples. It's funny when you start to think about it. We've almost got an awful lot of those answers potentially at our fingertips if we want to look for them, but we have to want to look for them.
Last word. Yeah.
Word? That's going to be tricky.
Hint.
I think we can learn from the gaming community, who spend a lot of time building quite complex socio-anthropological models of how hypothetical communities could behave. So why don't we try and do that on the basis of a more evidence-based, opinion-based, anthropological-based set of rules for how the agents in their games actually interact and behave with each other. Not to be deterministic about it, but just to see which sorts of options for investment, either in business models or in infrastructure or technology, are more likely to move us into places which socially we would find unacceptable. Because we all know of science fiction movies which we look at in horror and think, how could anyone think we might want to build stuff that is actually perfectly feasible to engineer that we wouldn't want? And Hollywood's really good at doing that because we go and watch those movies, don't we? But if we start trying to use that same sort of approach, that imaginative approach, that creative approach, but put it in a place which is more to do with allowing the population at large to visualise and immerse themselves in possible futures and get their feedback and get into a dialogue, into a conversation. One of the things I am quite passionate about is we stop doing consultation and we start doing conversation. It's really important that we get a much richer and deeper way of engagement with people, not the citizen, people as individuals, and then start organising reactions to that in a way which we iterate with them, co-create those possible futures. Because this is about people, it's not about transport, this is about people.
Thank you. I'm going to leave it there. I mean, Brian started off, I think it's very appropriate. He should round things off nicely at the end there. I'm just going to throw in a quick comment. Years ago, British Rail went through a programme of closing ticket offices and sticking in ticket machines, and they thought they'd solved the problem because all the guy did was sell tickets and they've got ticket machines. Well, there's the problem. They didn't realise the guy also provided information, he provided personal security, he kept the place tidy, etc., etc. And I think perhaps there's an equivalent here with driverless, you know, particularly the taxi type situation. The taxi doesn't just take you from A to B. For some people, it's a source of companionship, have a mode with the taxi driver, also providing information, also providing personal security. And therefore, we perhaps ought to be thinking multidimensionally about the different roles that drivers actually have and whether we're going to cover all those things off if we move to driverless vehicles. On that note, we'll have a break for 15 minutes, and please join me in thanking our speakers.